The year is 2024. America stands at a crossroads, facing one of the most consequential elections in its history. The upcoming presidential election is more than just a political race. It's a defining moment for the nation's future. It's a battle for the soul of the nation, a struggle to determine the values and principles that will guide us forward. Deep divisions run through the heart of the country with passionate supporters on both sides. Voters face a stark choice between two drastically different visions for the future, each promising a distinct path. On one side we have the incumbent president's name, who seeks to continue his/her leadership. She promises to make America great again, by doubling down on the policies that defined his/her first term, aiming to build on past successes. These include, list 2, 3 key policies of the incumbent, which she believes are essential for the nation's prosperity. Incumbent president's name appeals to a sense of nostalgia, promising to restore America to a bygone era of prosperity and strength, evoking memories of better times. Challenging the incumbent is challenger's name, a political party candidate with a vastly different vision for America, one that seeks to address contemporary challenges. Challenger's name campaigns on a platform of change, promising to address issues like list 2, 3 key issues the challenger focuses on, aiming to create a more just and equitable society. She appeals to voters who feel left behind by the current administration, promising a more inclusive and equitable society where every voice is heard. This election is not just about choosing a president, it's about choosing the direction of the country for generations to come. It's about deciding what kind of America we want to be in the 21st century, and what values we want to uphold. It's about envisioning a future where every citizen has a stake in the nation's success, and where unity prevails over division. The stakes have never been higher, and the outcome of this election will shape the course of history. The economy is always a top issue in any election, and 2024 is no different. As the election approaches, the economic concerns of everyday citizens take center stage. Voters are worried about jobs, wages, and the rising cost of living. These issues affect everyone, from young professionals to retirees. The two candidates offer starkly different approaches to addressing these concerns. Their visions for the future of the economy couldn't be more different. The incumbent president touts the successes of his/her economic policies, pointing to list 2, 3 perceived economic successes. These successes include job growth, a booming stock market, and increased consumer confidence. She promises to continue down the same path, cutting taxes, reducing regulations, and promoting American businesses. The incumbent believes that these measures will lead to sustained economic growth and prosperity for all. The challenger, on the other hand, argues that the incumbent's policies have only benefited the wealthy, leaving behind working families and exacerbating income inequality. The challenger believes that a different approach is needed to ensure that everyone has a fair shot at success. She proposes a different approach, one focused on investing in education, infrastructure, and clean energy jobs. These investments, the challenger argues, will create new opportunities and build a more sustainable future. The debate over the economy is not just about numbers, it's about values. It's about what kind of society we want to live in and what kind of future we want to create for the next generation. It's about what kind of economy we want to build and who should benefit from it. Do we prioritize growth at all costs, or do we focus on equity and fairness? Voters must decide whether they believe the incumbent's promise of continued growth or the challenger's vision of a more equitable economy. The choice they make will shape the nation's future for years to come. Healthcare is another issue that deeply divides Americans. The Affordable Care Act, often referred to as Obamacare, has been a political football for over a decade. The incumbent president has repeatedly tried to repeal and replace it, arguing that it's too expensive and burdensome. The challenger, however, supports the Affordable Care Act and proposes expanding it to cover more Americans. She argues that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, and that everyone deserves access to quality, affordable care. The debate over healthcare is deeply personal for many Americans. Millions struggle to afford health insurance or face sky-high medical bills. This election will determine the future of healthcare in America. Will we move towards a system that provides universal coverage, or continue down the path of private insurance and limited access? Section 4. Climate change, urgent crisis or overblown threat. Climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time, yet it remains a deeply polarizing topic in American politics. The incumbent president has downplayed the threat of climate change, rolling back environmental regulations, and withdrawing the United States from the Paris Agreement. The challenger, in stark contrast, views climate change as an existential threat that requires urgent action. She proposes a bold plan to transition the country to 100% renewable energy, invest in green jobs, and rejoin the Paris Agreement. The debate over climate change is not just about science, it's about economics, national security, and intergenerational justice. Voters must decide whether they believe the incumbent's claims that environmental regulations are bad for the economy, or the challenger's warnings about the catastrophic consequences of inaction. Section 5. Social justice. Demands for equality and fairness. In recent years, the call for equality and fairness has grown louder and more urgent. The past few years have seen a resurgence of social justice movements, from Black Lives Matter to #MeToo. These movements have mobilized millions of people across the country and around the world. These movements have shone a spotlight on systemic racism, sexism, and other forms of inequality that persist in American society. They have sparked important conversations and demanded action from those in power. The incumbent president has often dismissed these movements, accusing them of being divisive and un-American. She argues that these protests disrupt the social order and create unnecessary conflict. She has appealed to a sense of law and order, promising to crack down on protests and restore respect for traditional values. This stance has resonated with some voters who feel that the protests have gone too far. The challenger, on the other hand, has expressed support for the goals of social justice movements. She believes that addressing these issues is crucial for the nation's progress. She has promised to address racial disparities in policing, criminal justice, and other areas. This includes implementing reforms to ensure fair treatment for all individuals, regardless of their background. The challenger also champions LGBTQ+ rights and advocates for policies that promote gender equality. She aims to create a society where everyone has the same opportunities and protections. The debate over social justice is about who we are as a nation. It challenges us to reflect on our values and the kind of future we want to build. It's about whether we are willing to confront our history of injustice and work towards a more equitable future. This requires acknowledging past wrongs and committing to meaningful change. Voters must decide whether they believe the incumbent's message of law and order or the challenger's vision of a more just and inclusive society. This decision will shape the direction of the country for years to come, influencing how we address issues of equality and fairness.